I'm very happy. Thank for the organizer and me uh, for this opportunity. Second, I mean, especially after our debate now, I feel even more luckier to work on texts that are really from excavation. And it's not only excavation. I have the excavator here, Ian Stern, that can really testify that the things I'm going to speak about were really found in a real excavation. Okay? More than a century of excavation at Maresha, started in 1900 and still active to this day, have yielded tremendously exciting and varied finds, including more than 1,200 Greek and Aramaic inscriptions in ostraca. The number and diversity of the finds place Maresha among the most important and rich ancient archaeological sites in Israel. Zooming in, our focus today will be on a very narrow but nonetheless stimulating topic. First, the place, subterranean complex, number 169. Now the context, we will analyze and discuss the largest, or at least one of the large ostracon found there. First, to the history of and archaeological excavation. There are a number of biblical and post-biblical references to Maresha as a city in ancient Judea. The archaeological record clearly reflects an Iron Age II presence. We have some remains, you see Lamelech and other stuff. Following the Babylonian conquest of Judea in 586 BCE and the subsequent conquest of Edom by the Nabonidus in 552 BCE, there was a migration of Edomites and other ethnic groups into southern Judea. Little archaeological evidence from the 6th, 5th centuries BCE survives, but there are material finds from the 4th century BCE as well. Moving on, the states of Maresha during the Persian period is unclear. By the 3rd century BCE, it appears that a Hellenized Sidonian community settled at Maresha. The city's close commercial ties with the Ptolemies during the 3rd century BCE is evident in the Zenon Papyri 259 BCE. In around 198 BCE, the city came under Seleucid control, and the process of Hellenization intensified. During the Hasmonean Wars, Maresha was used by Seleucid army as a base for attacks against Judea, and the Maccabean retaliated strongly. Following its conquest and destruction by John Hyrcanus in 107 BCE, the city believed to have been either abandoned or transferred to a different location. Maresha was first excavated in 1900, or actually 1899, by Bliss and McAllister, who discovered a planned and fortified Hellenistic city encircled by town walls with towers. They identified 2 Hellenistic and 1 Israelite strata in the mound. Many of the ancient city's olive presses, columbaria, and cisterns can still be seen. You are all invited to visit the site. There's a lot to see there. Now it's the best time of the year. You get free ticket also with a lot of flowers and beautiful stuff there. Large-scale excavations of surface areas, some of the subterranean complexes were directed by Amos Kloner under the auspice of the Israel Antiquity Authorities from 1989 to 2000. The results of the rich finds were originally published in 3 volumes, and a lot more, are being prepared for publication. Among them, the famous Edomite marriage contract, and I'm very grateful. Here's some slides of it. And here is the marriage contract. I'm very grateful to Amos for his scholarly generosity. Since 2000, Ian Stern, who is here, and Bernie Alpert have conducted further excavations. This southern foothill site has yielded more than, as I mentioned, 1,200 Greek and Semitic, mainly Aramaic, inscriptions dated to the Hellenistic period. Ian Stern has entrusted me with the Aramaic ostraca so far discovered, and I'm very I am very grateful for his collaboration. Now you could see a bit of subterranean cistern 169. You see, I'll go back a minute. You see, it's a huge place with many rooms, almost fully excavated already by now. Very complicated. You see, it was basically, in the right, you can see that it was basically used for carving stones, bricks and stones to build, but later on they realized it's a huge option to use it as silos or put things inside, so they use it again and again. You see beautiful rim, golden rim there. Beautiful earring, which you'll be surprised to find two of them. You know, most of my earrings are single mothers, right? I have only one. So this is a beautiful collection. Okay. 385 are from the subterranean complex 169, a cave complex that contains anthropogenic debris that was dumped from surface dwelling during the Hellenistic period and, by the nature of dumping, lack a clear stratigraphic context, but all genuine. Included in this collection are a group of 137 Aramaic ostraca dating to the 3rd or 2nd century BCE. And in this inscription that I will present to you today, they share the similar textual structure characterized by the two main elements. And you have it here in front of you. Very nice and clear. One, the sentences begin with Aramaic word hen or vehen. In previous work, we translated these words as and if p, sometimes and if not, vehen la. After further study, we have accepted Theodor Quasman's suggestion, and we now prefer to translate all the hens as either or, while the hen la might be interpreted as alternatively. But this is still a debate. All in all, this is work in process. So each time I give a lecture, and Angelica can testify, it looks a bit different, right? So it's work in process, and we are still trying to work out what is it all about. And that's why I love to present it, because I really expect you and others to give some feedback so we know where we are. In this ostraca, the formula hen min Elahim, you see here in blue, often appears and may be translated as either or, it is from the gods, but now we have other options. So we'll see. At the beginning of our work, we could not determine the identity of the inscription writers because we could not recognize any personal names that would hint nationality or religion. We could only suppose that the writers were not Jews. From previous experience with the inscriptions from Idumea, we have learned that the vast majority do not contain Jewish or Yahwistic theophorics. Now I refer to Ian's excellent discussion of this subject of the ethnicity and all this, the list of names, where they came from, very important. The epigraphic material from late Persian period Idumea and beginning of Hellenistic period represent a very mixed ethnic population, primarily Idumeans, Arabs, and Phoenicians. However, this problem has been resolved at least partly because we found the phrase "hen kos." Yes, either or, it is from Kos, written on some ostraca from this collection. Kos is a reference to the god of the Idumean, a whole discussion. We have a documentation of very early time up to quite late. Last week, we were able also to read another ostracon, which reads hen min Baal Adir, either from the mighty Baal. So we have Canaanites here as well. Of the 137 hen inscriptions, most are fragmentary with only a few complete or almost complete. The pottery sherds that were chosen by the scribes were not always the most durable writing media. At least one inscription was written on an upper part of a jar, including the rim. In another instance, the letters were inscribed on a fragment of a bowl, extending over the black strips and decorated its upper part. In some cases, several inscriptions were written in a scattered column across a single bowl. See, it's amazing. This is not an ostracon, actually. This is an inscription written on a bowl, and it's not a magic bowl in any perspective. The text is not magical as such. See, this is a huge text. They were really writing sometimes the 12 lines, sometimes even more. Both sides of the should. This is an ostraca, clear ostraca, and some more. The group of hand texts from Mareşa is a very distinctive, yet at the same time a very peculiar cluster of ostraca. Scholarly attempt to read the text encounter many problems, from syntactic challenges to problematic individual words. However, examining the text as a group rather than individual pieces may assist us to understanding the purpose and function of the inscriptions. Based on the phrase either or from the gods or from Kos, along with a characteristic structure of two or more elements, starting with the word hen, thus create a list of either or, sometimes hen la. Alternatively, the ostraca may be understood as divination text. In order to substantiate this interpretation, we consider a possible parallel to the text of the Mesopotamian world, where the most common written attestations for divination are conditional omens, and we have a lot of very important scholars who knows much more about it. Although there are some general similarities between the hand text from Mareşa and the Akkadian omen text, unfortunately, the comparative analysis is not easy to support. While the Mesopotamian omen have clear structure, because the protasis and the apodosis are usually complete, the meaning of the Mareşa text is much vaguer. In many cases, one of the elements that set up the condition is missing. Almost always, we have only if and non that is or thus. So it's really different. The sentences themselves are short and sometimes lack a verb. I would mention Angelica suggesting that it might be accepted text, but still I don't see how it go nicely with the omen text. But we'll go on searching. The Mareşa inscription written with ink on recycled pottery sherds are probably not canonical omen text as the Mesopotamian omens are. It would seem more likely that Mareşa ostraca document short versions of local oracles or alike, which we suppose were used during some sort of divination ceremony at the site, and I'll get to it a bit in the end. However, we can also present an alternative explanation by returning to our first interpretation we have suggested long time ago, to the parallel text found nearby. In area number 61, as scribal exercises used for training of divinizers. So it might be also some sort of practical, training, but still related to divination, to the divination word. As they were written in short sentences and are incomplete, they appear more similar to notations than complete copies of text. The presupposition of divination activity in Mareşa may find substantiations from the archaeological site. And here we are. Subterranean Complex 169, the finds there include a large number of aniconic Kernos lamp, that you can see now, attached to vessels similar to those used in various rituals in Hellenistic world. 20 models of chalk phalli, which appears to have been cultic in nature, and I prefer not to put this picture, excuse me, either connected to fertility rites or perhaps used as votive objects. And 56, and this is very important in my mind, 56 astragaloi, knuckle bones. Our corpus includes one made of lead and one of glass, and 6 with Greek inscription with names like Nike, as well as names of gods and goddesses like Hera and Aphrodite. It's a great opportunity again to thank Ian and all the other colleagues that are working on this various subject, on the bones, on the astragaloi. It's still work in process, but it's a great example of collaboration. We meet once a year or even more than once a year, share our knowledge, and from that, all these ideas that I'm going to share with you comes from. We really work together, archaeologists and epigrapher. It's really fascinating. In the Greek and Roman cultures, some astragaloi were associated with luck and were used as game pieces in games of chance, while others were used in divination rituals. The rich cultic assemblage found in subterranean complex 169 has been connected to a monumental building approximately 30 meters away in area 800 that Amos Kloner and Nili Greitzer identified as a shrine. These examples of divinatory activities offered us a unique insight into the nature of the cult worship. Complex 169 is also around 10 meters from the subterranean complex 57, where the famous Heliodorus stela was discovered. It concerns the Seleucid king Seleucus IV's appointment of a certain Olympiadoros to a position of religious responsibility in Koile, Syria, and Phoenicia. The importance of the location of this subterranean complex and, more specifically, its proximity to these other two sites will be made clear as we proceed. The consensus of scholarly opinion is that Heliodorus stela once stood near or inside a temple. To this point, we have been able to define the following subject in the hand text collection. First, sickness and disease, such as machla and mauta, and if death or illness, and then demons, referring to a general term as rucha and utuku, as you can see here, used in Akkadian text as generic name, as well as Lilith. And also, last time I was able to read with Mark Geller the demon Sinif, or Sinof. Astronomical events such as Halley Comet, as well as various family issues such as marriage and divorce. This is a text I've published already. Probably most of the things, here's the rucha and the other stuff. Most things we'll need to read anew, but I think we were okay in the right direction. Astronomical events such as the Halley Comet, as well as various family issues such as the marriage and divorce. All these issues are part of a generally daily life in ancient world. Now I would like to take a closer look at the largest ostracon found in the collection. You can see the two sides of it. It measures 15 on 11 centimeter. Bears 18 lines. The inscription seems to be almost complete. It is written on both sides, including 16 written lines on one side and side B only 2 lines. But if you can look closer, and I'll show it a bit later again, it's very interesting that this is scribe number 1. First line that goes up is scribe number 2, and the second line is scribe number 3. There are clear differences in the script of the two sides. The script can be dated to the 2nd century BCE, but with some archaic letters of the 4th century BCE. It's very interesting. Had we seen only the second side, we say, oh, it's probably 4th century. Strange mem. I see open eyes here. But since it is on the two sides of one ostracon, it's quite clear that they were written on the same time and not 200 years later. The study of this inscription, like many of other of this collection, was done together with Rivka Elitzur Lehman, and later with Mark Geller and Theodor Kvassman and Michael Anglois. Basically, Michael and me are now in charge of the project, and Michael is also responsible for having taken the best photos of the ostraca and joined the project, preparing it for publication. I would also like to thank Ada Yardeni, Shaul Shaked, and many others. If I forget, I'm sorry, for their assistance. Some of the readings are tentative, and there are a number of uncertain interpretations. The text includes many subjects, as I mentioned before, but now we're talking about this particular one. Some are written in short, enigmatic sentences. We can clearly define the following topics: settlements and buildings like houses, Medinta, Beita, things like Kiria, marital status that I look a little, in a few minutes I look at it, economic transactions. Issues of marital status make up a major part of this ostracon. Lines 5 to 12, and here we really have some flesh. In contrast to most of the other ostraca that move line by line and sometimes in the middle of the line to different topics. Given the opportunity to focus on connected material, I have decided to dedicate the rest of my lecture to our attention to this content. Let us turn to the text. הן מחטף יחטף אינטתה והן מקח. It's very clear and it's beautiful. No question about the reading. Either he elopes with a woman or acquires, probably by marriage. The Hebrew and Aramaic, in Hebrew and Aramaic, the verb chataf means to take away, usually by violence. In Psalm 10:9, יערוב לחטוף אני. The noun chitfa or chatfa in Aramaic also means violence. For example, as you can see in Isaiah 16:1, translated, the Hamas is translated into chitfa, also in Ezekiel. Marriage by kidnapping is first known from the biblical story of the outrage of Gibeah, Judges 19-21. After the battle of Gibeah, the men of Israel had sworn an oath at Mitzpah, saying, "None of us shall give his daughter to Benjamin as a wife." Later, the plan for the survival of this tribe without women is unfolded. וראיתם והנה יצאו בנות שילה לחול במחולות ויצאתם מן הכרמים וחטפתם לכם איש אשתו מבני שילה. Judges 21:21. Abduction marriage or marriage by forced eloping is discussed later by the Tosefta Ktubot 4:9, you have it here. כשהיו בני אלכסנדריה מקדשים נשים, אחר בא וחוטפה מן השוק. Adiel Schremer, who discussed this subject in detail, noted the same practice was also known among non-Jews in the region, for example, from the Nestorian church. Much later, but still. Vehen mekach, in this context, mekach probably comes from lakach, which sometimes means to take in marriage. For example, in the marriage contract found in Elephantine, we read, moreover, Ananiah shall not be able to take another woman besides Yoishma. When we see here two options, so we see here two options of marriage. The first, marriage by forced eloping, has been known for centuries from various sources, from in different communities. This practice was sometimes implemented as a means of resolving issues within or between families, rather not arbitrarily imposed against the woman's will. It still happens today in some communities, even in Israel. The father won't let his daughter, the guy will kidnap his wife. I mean, it's well-known phenomena. The second option, marriage by acquiring, is more common one among all ethnicities. Now moving on to line 6 to 8. We read, הן בקושט או קושות, גברא ממלא לי מי והן לה, הן אמרת בקושט, הן בימינה ידי, ינתן כספה לגברא בימינה ידי. You see three lines which make some sort of continuous text. It is not clear whether this line served as the continuation of the line before, line 5, or rather move to a new subject, still related to the issue of male-female relations, but proceeds to the period during their marriage or maybe toward the said ending of it. The first part can tentatively be translated as follows. Either the man speaks with her truthfully, or alternatively, either she spoke truly, or in her right hand, money will be given to the man in her right hand. The exact meaning of this scenario is not fully clear, but it deals with both husband and wives need to speak truthfully and these consequences. Interestingly, such a directive for honesty is raised in another context about the same period, that is, my beloved Genesis Apocryphon from Cave 1 at Qumran, an Aramaic retelling of the cycle of Enoch, Noah, and Abraham. Although one should not mix literature with juridical texts, and you should have seen Mark Geller when I quote this, I don't dare you. But some scholars noted the juridical background for some of the terminology in the Genesis Apocryphon. These are real 10 times, I think, in one column of all sorts of juridical texts. So it is at the back of a literature as well, I would say. So I would carefully suggest to look at the following parallel. In the Enoch cycle, I need to have Genesis Apocryphon picture. In column 2, we come to the middle of a hot debate between Lamech and his wife Bit Enosh with regards to the fatherhood of Noach. His miraculous birth, not preserved in this scroll, but known from Enoch 106-7, raised the suspicion that Noach's father was one of the watchers who descended to earth to mate with the daughter of man, found in Genesis 6:1-4, and elaborated upon the Book of Watchers. In this scene, Lamech asked Bit Enosh to speak truthfully, ad bekosht, imi temalelin velo bechadvin. You are to speak with me in utter truth without lies. Back to the Ostracon. If our interpretation is correct, line 6 mentions, in short, the option of the man speaking truthfully, or the alternative that he does not speak truthfully. While the line Amrat seems to move to third person feminine, she said either she spoke, I think I have it again, so you'll be with me. Okay? While line 7 Amret seems to move to the third personal feminine, she said that is either she spoke truly, or in her right hand money will be given in her right hand. It could be that the word or in her right hand is a mistake, duplication of the next line 8. On the next line, it might tentatively be read, so with my correction, הן בקושט גברא ממלל אימי והן לה, הן אמרת בקושט, and then I think it should have been והן לה, ינתן כספא לגברא בימין הידי. Either the man speaks with her truthfully, or alternatively, either she spoke truly, or alternatively, money will be given to the man in her right hand. Now, I didn't solve all the problem by correcting the text. This could be a reference to being truthful, including both man and the woman, or in alternative reading that they do not act truthfully, and the consequence are the woman paid the man in her right hand. Probably in the case that the woman is not truthful, she pays a fee. Neither the actual act, whether this concern a divorce, nor the meaning of the right hand act are clear. This interpretation needs further study. I looked very hard for right hand action. Of course, we have it all over. We have it in the Bible. We have it in Elephantine when you make a slave mark on her right hand, but nothing up until now was not relevant. I'll be very grateful if a right hand will be raised and solve my problem. Next. Next, we are moving to line 10-12. Hen beish, it says alun, but it probably needs to be ale. Venetrea vehen naki yeshalem. Either the man despises, has something bad upon her, or he reduces the payment or something, or he is then free of obligation. Naki is literally clean, but as I'll show in a minute, it's free of obligation. He must pay. As I said, alun is probably from ale. Are this line a continuation of the former ones? Not clear. But here the text seems to deal with a divorce. This is based upon a known terminology of the man has something bad, that is, despise his wife. Such terminology, do you have it? Okay. Such terminology is known from the biblical law of Deuteronomy 24. Of course, everybody knows it. כי ייקח איש אישה ובעלה, והיה אם לא תמצא חן בעיניו, כי ימצא בערוות דבר, וכתב לה ספר כריתות, ונתן בידה ושילחה מביתו. It is also found in Mishnah Gittin. I know it's later, but still it's somehow relevant. Here we have two juridical terms, natar, the root natar, and naki. The words venetare, or something like that, is from the root natar, meaning to take from someone's possession. To be compared again with the Elephantine, one of the contracts, I shall not be able to release a hantar, it was reconstructed, my goods and my property from Miftachia, thus might be translated as in our case, and he reduces her, namely her payment. As for naki, literary meaning clean, but used here in the meaning of to remove a claim or obligation. This phrase probably means the man is free of obligation toward the woman. In his studies of Arabic loan words in the Aramaic and Nabatean text from Nachal Chever, dated to the Bar Kokhba revolt, our late beloved teacher Jonas Greenfield cited a group of words that comprises what he called defense clauses, that is, shafi, dechi, marak, patzal, naki, and more. These words, and I quote, guarantee that the vendor or lessor of an item stands fully behind the transaction and will, when necessary, deal with the challenges and claims that might arise to contest his sale or lease of that item. End of quote. This construct is known from the Middle Babylonian and Middle Assyrian, and also found in Aramaic legal texts from the Neo-Babylonian period, and example that Jonas Greenfield added coming from Nachal Hever in Nachal Sial collection. So you see, in order to understand one Ostraka, we can go all over the world, the ancient world, all over languages and subjects, and still not clearly understand where we are. We therefore suggest interpreting this sentence in the Maresha Ostrakon that under any circumstances, whether or not the man despises the woman and has reduced her maintenance money, or whether he does not owe her maintenance, he must pay a divorce settlement in full in either cases. Finally, lines 13 to 14. Okay, this is the Miftachia and the terminology I mentioned before. And this is the last few lines. Finally, line 13-14 also deals with the family relations, but this time not between the husband and wife. We read, hen beish al inteta, min zutarta, vehen la. Either the junior wife despises the woman, or alternatively. Here, if we are correct, the subject of having bad upon or despising does not refer to the husband, but seems to appear in line 14, min zutarta, and probably refers to the younger, junior wife, or some sort of a second wife, who despises the older woman of the house. This conflict clause reminds us of the relations between Hagar and Sarai in Genesis 16. Vatikal gvirta be'enea. Also, I added one a little relevant from Proverbs. Ancient Near East law anticipates the tensions likely to arise in such situations. For this reason, marriage contracts include laws in this regard, such as the well-known laws of Hammurabi 146. If a man has married a temple woman and she has given a slave girl to her husband, and she has born a son, but afterwards the slave girl takes over the position. I think this is some sort of a relevant terminology of her mistress. Because she has born a son, her mistress may not sell her to the silver. She shall put on her mark of slavery, and she shall be treated as a slave girl. I'm sure it's not exactly the same, but it at least echoes some of it. Okay, I'm aiming to the summary. The 137 Ostraka in Aramaic for Maresha are mostly fragmentary and are difficult to read. However, in some cases, we are fortunate to have some clear and complete lines, like this one that we have discussed. We have suggested interpreting this collection as divination text, probably originally part of a collection from nearby shrine, or perhaps from other cultic items nearby. We have also raised the possibility that this collection was part of a scribal exercise with divination text, possibly related to a school for practitioners. We have discussed some issues raised in the large Ostrakon for Maresha, looking at the various references to marital status. We looked at two types of marriage, eloping or acquiring. We then move on to look at different aspects of the relations between a man and a woman on the issue of truthfulness in their interactions, although their marital status is uncertain. Then there is a reference to money being transferred to a man with likely a formal act of giving it in the right hand. This was followed by a statement whether a man despises his wife and reduces her maintenance money, or whether he does not owe her maintenance. He must pay a divorce settlement in full. Finally, there was a case of a junior wife who despised a woman, probably a senior wife. We should note that although some of these phrases state alternatives, there are two statements that refer to payment that appears to offer formal judicial settlement. Having no parallel yet to call upon, we must wait for further material analysis to offer more definitive conclusion. In consideration of the entire collection of Ostraka found, we have not yet discovered an association with any particular ethnic group living at Maresha. The topic we read from the Ostraka pertain in general daily life in the ancient world, interpreted as predicting the future of revealing the will of the gods. We continue to work text by text, looking forward to the time when all the texts are fully deciphered and interpreted. At that time, we will be able to better understand the content and context of this fascinating Ostraka from Hellenistic Maresha. Now to the latest news. Okay, I just came back from several intensive days reading Ostraka in Berlin with Mark Geller and Michael Langlois. On the last day, like we have in excavation, right? You have the best finding in the very last day. Mark came up with a very interesting interpretation that deserved further study. He suggested a possible connection between the different, difficult to decipher Ostraka before us, and the cuneiform tablets from Babylon, dated to 177 BCE, discovered already in 1818. Now, first of all, just I want you to see, before we move on, the places together. You see, this is 169, the place where the subterranean complex. This is 800, the temple, probably shrine. It's probably to Isis. We now know a little more also from the excavation of the 169. 57, where the Heliodorus stela was found, in 69, when I think I found another of this hand text. Okay, I'm moving to the text. Now, the cuneiform tablet, this one, I'll be back to the other one in a minute. Tablet was first decoded and published by Irving Finkel in 1991. Although it was found in 1818, nobody was able to even understand what is in one of the sides. Along with, and there was some trying, but I think only the full decipherment was done in 1991. And in his book, Collective Essays of a Conference in 2008, he has a wonderful article. Along with another related tablet, and now I quote, the rules for a board game, which appears to be a later version of the board used for the so-called royal game of Ur. This is the beautiful game here. In addition to the instructions, no, just a minute. Here are the instructions. You can start playing. I told the story to my grandkids, and they were so excited. They said, let's start play. Let's try to make a copy. I think it's something to do in the Pesach vacation, right? In addition to the instruction, both tablets record a separate tradition in which part of the playing grid is used for fortune telling. That's what I was looking for. This game is to be played with two types of astragals, from oxen and sheep, used as die. Now, it's very interesting. The use of astragal has a link to our Maresha text, as well as some other shared terms. Now, first of all, with the astragal, I asked Lee Perry, right? Who's working on the these knock bones, and I say, how many types of astragalos you have? She said, sheep and goats. And I said, that's all. He said, oh, there's also a cattle bones. I said, wow. Little group, maybe 4 as opposed to 50. But if they are of different size, we're going to the right direction, maybe. There's also some other shared terms, such as a house, a country, and place like that, which I find in those texts. I mean, it's only the beginning, but it is fascinating connection, as well as the mention of the term lucky, in the Babylonian text, which is literally the name of the goddess or of good fortune, to be compared, of course, with Nike, which is the goddess of victory, written in the Astragalus from Mareşa, which opens a possible new direction for our text analysis. And finally, something which might be also related, that the two possibilities of despising a woman, we have also in this text, that the lady innkeeper either makes love with the visitor or despises them. So I don't know, we might have something here which help us lead to the direction. When I always work on inscription, I usually say that if you are stuck, you have no solution, or you have ad hoc solution, go back 3 steps and start anew. And if you're in the right direction, everything will come together and you'll solve it. So not everything still come together, but I think we are in the right direction. Since we suggested at the beginning that all the cultic items that were found are part of this complex, something like around 107, when they all became Jews, they clean out the temple and throw it to this subterranean complex, which is quite close by, maybe. And that's why we have domestic altars. We have a lot of figurines, which I didn't mention, this phalli for rituals, and the astragalo, which I think was not just part of a cult, but maybe part of this process of divination. I can imagine some sort of board games with a very old diviner sitting, and you come and ask things. He maybe writes down all these questions or options, and then throw a dice, maybe get an answer, maybe not. I didn't mention that when I was in Leipzig a long time ago, an Egyptian scholar, I forgot what is her name, Francesca, suggested that much later there are papyri from Egypt, so presumably from Ptolemaic period, also have some sort of list. Should I go to go sailing or not, and then list with numbers. Number 4, don't dare you. Number 6, a great opportunity. So something is going on here in between. Since Mareşa is a central place, crossroad of all cultures. We get Edomian, we get Arabs, Nabatean, a lot of Greek influence in this complex. We have Isis. I even found Nanai. So maybe you have a Nanai there. I mean, there's a lot of things going on there, which is a great enigma that will untie slowly and solve it with your help, and slowly with time, hopefully. Thank you very much.